I think to some extent, at least from the British perspective, there's a sense that the Foreign Secretary Liz Truss really felt compelled on behalf of the British government to try to break the deadlock that's now happened in terms of power sharing government in Ireland, and of course the wider problems, the very acute problems that the Northern Ireland Protocol has thrown up. So from her perspective, she's making an announcement. She's not laying down legislation, but she's proposing in future legislation that will remove, at least from her perspective, the problems, that will remove east-west barriers that was mentioned a couple of days ago by Prime Minister Johnson, allowing goods to flow between Great Britain and Northern Ireland in particular. And it's the goods going into Northern Ireland effectively that are staying there. Those are the ones that at this point are seen, at least within Northern Ireland, as being subject to unreasonable or even gratuitous checks and paperwork. So from Truss's perspective, from Johnson's perspective, this is an insurance policy. This is something they feel they need to lay down, a law seeking a new regime, a new regulatory outlook to remove the burdens on British goods sold in Northern Ireland. And allow, I think, Britain to set new policies, new tax policies and spending policies in Northern Ireland, as well as Great Britain.
Amelia, it's a difficult balancing act. So if there is an alternative approach, I wonder what it is.
Well, I think probably it will be a modulation, if you like, between actually having to lay down this paperwork, this legislation, and what the European Union obviously wants. And that's to suggest not ripping up, the protocol and itself as something of a protocol or an annex to the treaty, but trying to find, a mid-range, something that people will be happy with. I think certainly, pulling back, reducing checks and paperwork is incredibly important. I think what Brussels is probably also looking for, and this will go a long way, perhaps, to finding a solution, is data sharing. This is something that was requested by Vice President Šefčovič to assure the European side, that Britain is aware of the integrity of the EU single market, making sure that that's safeguarded. And if that box can be ticked, and the EU can itself understand the position of the Democratic Union as part of the DUP, that they too want to be part of the market. They want to be part of the UK's internal market. Hopefully, with a little bit of give and take and a little bit of diplomacy and even slightly technocratic issues like data sharing, maybe there won't be a need for this legislation actually to have to be laid down at all.
What about maybe a little bit of brinkmanship, some sanctions on Scotch whisky or fish? We're talking about billions of dollars of trade here at risk. Is a trade war inevitable?
I really hope it's not, because we got awfully close to that, even between the sort of mini fish wars we had last summer, as you might remember, between England and France. Those really didn't go particularly well, in the sense it was between Britain and the European Union, but it felt like a sort of a closer rehash of the cod wars, if you like, of the 70s. There are a number of outcomes. I'm really hoping that a trade war is the worst possible one and we don't get anywhere near it. Obviously, if we can back away from brinkmanship, and it's a good word for it, if the UK not necessarily climbs down, but perhaps approaches with a more softer requirement. The Prime Minister Johnson himself did say he wants a negotiated solution. The UK's preference is for a negotiated solution. And Šefčovič himself wants that. So although there's been fairly hard words today, as you might expect, that's probably, that's sort of the public affairs aspect. The European Union might too need to be able to concede. It may have to change its mandate. There will have to be a compromise. If there's no agreement, however, brinkmanship does seem, and it will ratchet up the tension. The problem is the UK may proceed, not just laying down the legislation itself, but tearing up the protocol, triggering Article 16, and then we really will be in a bit of a mess.